My partner canceled our Christmas plans to spend the day with his coworker and said I shouldn't be upset because they had tradition. I'm 28F and my partner Tyler is 31M. We've been together for about a year and a half. Last week he told me he's canceling our Christmas plans because he already committed to spending the day with his coworker Becca like he does every year. He seems genuinely confused about why I'm upset, saying it's just a tradition they have and I should understand. Christmas is 3.5 weeks away and I'm questioning whether I'm overreacting or if this is as weird as it feels. For context, Tyler and I started dating in June 2024. We met through a kickball league, started seeing each other regularly, discovered we had shared interests in hiking and documentary films. By October 2024 we were exclusive and serious about building something together. I have my own apartment in Seattle and Tyler has his about 20 minutes away. We spend most weekends at his place. I keep clothes and stuff there. We've met each other's families, talked about moving in together next year. I thought we were on a clear path forward. Tyler works in marketing for a tech company. He's been there for about 4 years. Becca works in the same department, also in marketing. They've been co-workers the entire time. From what Tyler's told me, they're close friends at work, eat lunch together most days, collaborate on projects, have similar senses of humor. He mentions her fairly often but always in a my work friend context. I've met her twice at company events, once at a happy hour last spring and once at their summer picnic. Both times she was polite but distant toward me. Tyler mentioned early in our relationship that he and Becca had a tradition of spending Christmas together. He explained that they both have complicated family situations. His parents are divorced and live in different states. Visiting both during the holidays is difficult and emotionally exhausting. Becca's family lives overseas and she doesn't always travel to see them, so for the past few years, they've spent Christmas Day together, cooking a meal, watching movies, exchanging gifts. He framed it as two friends supporting each other through a potentially lonely holiday. When he first mentioned this last summer, it was in past tense, something they used to do. I assumed that now that he was in a relationship, the tradition would naturally end. He didn't explicitly say that, but it seemed obvious. Last Christmas we'd only been dating 6 months. Things weren't that serious yet. I spent Christmas with my family in Minnesota like I always do. Tyler said he was going to his mom's place in Arizona. I didn't think much about it at the time. 2 months ago, in late September, I asked Tyler what he wanted to do for Christmas this year. My family does a big gathering at my parents' house. My siblings bring their kids, aunts and uncles come, the whole extended family. I invited him to come with me. My parents would love to have him. He seemed excited about it, said it sounded great and he'd love to meet everyone. I booked his plane ticket along with mine, told my mom he was coming. She started planning around having him there. Everything seemed set until last week, November 24th. We were at his apartment making dinner when I mentioned something about the Christmas trip, confirming flight times. Tyler got this uncomfortable expression. He said he needed to talk to me about something. He explained that he'd forgotten about his tradition with Becca when he'd agreed to come to Minnesota. Becca had apparently asked him a few weeks ago what their plans were for Christmas, assuming they'd do their usual thing. He'd been vague with her initially, said he needed to figure some stuff out. Then last week she'd pressed him because she needed to know whether to book a flight to see her family. He'd told her he'd probably be available, that they'd keep the tradition going. I was completely lost. I reminded him that he'd agreed to come to Minnesota with me, that I'd already bought his plane ticket, told my family he was coming. He looked torn but stuck to his position. He'd committed to Becca first even if he'd temporarily forgotten. The tradition was important to both of them, 3 years running, and he didn't want to let her down. I asked why Becca couldn't just visit her family if she needed plans. He said her relationship with her parents is stressful. She prefers to stay local when possible. I asked why she couldn't spend Christmas with other friends or even alone. He got defensive, insisted I was being unfair. Becca relied on this tradition. It meant a lot to her. He couldn't just abandon her because he was in a relationship now. The word abandon struck me as extreme for breaking plans with a coworker. I pointed out that I'm his partner. Surely spending Christmas with me should take priority. He insisted it wasn't about priority, it was about honoring commitments. I asked what exactly their Christmas tradition involved. He described cooking an elaborate meal together at Becca's apartment. They spend the entire day there, morning through late evening, cook together, watch their favorite holiday movies, exchange gifts they picked out for each other, have wine, just hang out. The way he described it sounded intimate and couple-like. I asked if he understood how this looked, spending an entire holiday with another woman instead of his partner. He seemed puzzled, insisted it was just friendship. They'd never been romantic. It was purely platonic. I asked how he'd feel if I canceled our plans to spend Christmas Day with a male coworker I saw every day and exchanged gifts with. He claimed that would be fine if it was important to me. We went in circles for over an hour. Tyler maintained that his commitment to Becca came first chronologically, so he had to honor it. I argued that being in a serious relationship changes priorities. He said he'd already told Becca he'd be there and backing out now would be cruel. I asked where that left me. He suggested I could still go to Minnesota by myself. We could celebrate together another day, before or after the actual holiday. I pointed out that the whole point was spending Christmas together. He said Christmas was just a date. We could make our own traditions any day we wanted. The entire conversation made me feel unimportant, like his coworker's feelings mattered more than mine. I left his apartment that night without resolving anything. Since then, things have been tense. Tyler seems to think I'm being unreasonable and jealous, that I should trust him and understand the importance of maintaining friendships. I feel like I'm being asked to accept something inappropriate. My best friend says the whole situation crosses boundaries and I should stand firm. My sister thinks maybe I'm overreacting since if it's truly platonic it shouldn't matter. I looked at Tyler's plane ticket, non-refundable, $340 that'll go to waste. I told my mom he's not coming but I didn't explain why because I felt embarrassed. She asked if everything was okay between us and I said it was fine. Tyler has been texting me like everything is normal, sending memes, asking about my day, avoiding the massive unresolved issue between us. When I brought it up again yesterday, he sighed like I was exhausting him. He said he'd already explained his reasoning. The tradition predates our relationship. Becca is important to him, and he needs me to be mature about this. The word mature bothered me, like wanting to spend Christmas with my partner instead of having him spend it with another woman is childish. Christmas is 3.5 weeks away. I don't know what to do. Do I go to Minnesota alone and accept this is how things are? Do I push back harder? Do I stay in Seattle alone to make a point? Part of me wonders if I'm missing something, if this really is innocent friendship and I'm creating problems, but another part feels like any reasonable partner would choose to spend Christmas with their significant other over a coworker. Am I wrong for being upset about this? Is maintaining holiday traditions with opposite-sex coworkers normal when you're in a serious relationship? Or is Tyler prioritizing Becca inappropriately? Update, day after Christmas. I'm updating the day after Christmas because what actually happened was nothing like I expected. After my original post, I read through responses and the overwhelming consensus was that Tyler's behavior was inappropriate. I tried to have serious conversations with him about boundaries multiple times over the past few weeks. None of them went well. The first week of December 3rd, I sat Tyler down and explained that spending major holidays with a coworker instead of a partner wasn't acceptable to me, that if our relationship was as serious as I thought it was, he should want to spend Christmas with me. Tyler's response was dismissive. He kept insisting I didn't understand how important the tradition was, that Becca had already planned everything, that he'd given his word. He made me feel demanding and unreasonable for having expectations. I asked him directly whether his friendship with Becca was more important than our relationship. He said that wasn't fair. They were different types of relationships. Both could coexist. I disagreed. He was actively choosing her over me for a major holiday. He accused me of being jealous and insecure. Over the next 2 weeks, tension grew worse. Tyler started being less available, claimed he was busy with work. We'd go days with minimal communication. When we did talk, he was distant. I started feeling like I was being punished for having boundaries. December 18th, exactly 1 week before Christmas, Tyler called me. He'd been doing a lot of thinking. He didn't think our relationship was working anymore. The Christmas situation had revealed fundamental incompatibilities. He felt like I didn't respect his friendships or trust him, that I was trying to control who he spent time with. I was stunned. I pointed out that all I'd asked was for him to spend Christmas with me instead of a coworker. This wasn't about controlling him. It was about normal relationship expectations. He said if I couldn't understand why his tradition with Becca mattered, maybe we weren't right for each other. He broke up with me over the phone a week before Christmas. After 18 months together, I'd already flown home to Minnesota by that point. My flight had been December 15th. I was at my parents' house when he called. I spent the first 2 days crying in my childhood bedroom while my family tiptoed around me. My mom finally got the full story out of me on December 20th. She was furious, said Tyler had shown his true priorities and I was better off knowing now. My dad, who rarely gets involved in my relationships, called Tyler an idiot. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day were hard. I tried to be present for my family, my nieces, and nephews, but I kept thinking about Tyler, wondering if he was really at Becca's apartment, what they were doing, whether he felt any regret. Yesterday evening, December 25th, I got a text from Tyler's sister Morgan. I'd met her a few times during our relationship. We'd exchanged numbers at a family barbecue over the summer. She said she'd heard about the breakup and wanted to reach out. What she told me reframed everything. Morgan said she'd never liked Becca, thought the tradition was inappropriate from the start. She'd tried talking to Tyler about it before but he'd always been defensive. According to Morgan, Tyler and Becca's relationship had always been more than just friendly coworkers. Morgan told me that about 3 years ago, in spring 2022, Tyler and Becca had briefly dated. It lasted maybe 2 months before they decided they were better as friends and went back to being just co-workers. But Morgan said the dynamic never really reset. They'd stayed incredibly close, borderline codependent. Becca would call Tyler at odd hours. They'd spend entire weekends together. She relied on him emotionally in ways that went beyond normal friendship. The Christmas tradition had started that same year, after they broke up. Christmas 2022 was the first one. Morgan thought it was Becca's way of keeping Tyler tied to her, maintaining intimacy under the guise of friendship. Morgan said she'd tried telling Tyler that Becca was never going to let him fully commit to another relationship as long as she was so entangled in his life. Tyler had always insisted they were just friends. Then Morgan told me something that made everything click into place. Last Christmas, December 2024, when Tyler told me he was going to his mom's place in Arizona, he'd actually spent Christmas with Becca. He'd lied to me about it. That's why he'd been so determined to keep the tradition going this year. It had been 3 years running exactly like he'd said. He'd just hidden the most recent one from me. Morgan felt terrible that she hadn't told me earlier. She'd assumed Tyler had been honest with me about his history with Becca. When she heard about the Christmas situation and the breakup, she realized he'd hidden crucial information and felt I deserved to know the truth. I sat there staring at my phone, processing that my entire relationship had been built on lies. Tyler had never mentioned dating Becca, never mentioned they had any romantic history at all, and he'd actively lied to me last Christmas about where he was and who he was with. I texted Tyler, keeping it simple and direct. Your sister told me you and Becca used to date. Why didn't you mention that? He didn't respond for 3 hours. When he finally replied, he called it ancient history, said it happened briefly years ago, didn't seem relevant to our relationship. He claimed it didn't matter because he and Becca were completely platonic now. I asked how he could possibly think it was okay to hide that information, especially when he was prioritizing Christmas with her over Christmas with me, especially when he'd lied about seeing her last Christmas. He said I was making a big deal out of nothing, that the brief dating period had been a mistake they'd both moved past. I told him the lying was worse than the Christmas issue itself, that I could never trust him again knowing he'd hidden their romantic history, lied about last Christmas, and maintained an inappropriately close relationship with her throughout our entire relationship. He said I was overreacting, looking for reasons to stay angry. That's when everything crystallized. Tyler had chosen Becca all along. He'd broken up with me rather than set boundaries with her. And based on what Morgan said, this probably wasn't the first relationship he'd sabotaged because of his unwillingness to create distance from his ex. I spent the rest of Christmas night talking to my sister about everything. She felt terrible for initially suggesting I might be overreacting. She said now that the full picture was clear. Tyler had been emotionally involved with Becca the entire time, maintaining an inappropriate relationship with an ex while pretending it was innocent friendship. This morning, December 26th, I woke up with clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. Tyler had actually done me a favor by ending things. I would have wasted more time on someone who was never fully available, who kept his ex in a space that should have been reserved for a partner. I blocked Tyler's number. I don't need more justifications or excuses. Morgan texted me this morning to check on me. She said Tyler spent Christmas at Becca's apartment exactly like he'd planned, their tradition intact. Meanwhile, he threw away an actual relationship to preserve whatever complicated thing he has with his ex. My family has been incredibly supportive. My mom keeps saying I dodged something worse down the line. My dad offered to have words with Tyler, which was sweet but unnecessary. My sister has been helping me process everything and making plans for things we can do together when I'm back in Seattle. I fly back on December 28th. I'm already thinking about changes I want to make. I live relatively close to Tyler's neighborhood and I want more separation. I'm also planning to reconnect with hobbies and friendships I somewhat neglected during the relationship. The hardest part is feeling foolish for not seeing it sooner. Looking back, there were signs I rationalized away. Tyler was constantly texting Becca. They had inside jokes I wasn't part of. She was always his first call when something happened at work. He lit up when he talked about her in ways he didn't always with me. I'd convinced myself it was just close friendship when it was clearly more. Final update, 2 weeks later. This is my final update. Things have resolved and I'm moving forward. After my last update, I flew back to Seattle on December 28th. I'd spent the extra days with family processing everything and planning my next steps. I felt surprisingly clear-headed, still hurt, but ready to rebuild. The first few days of January were about practical matters. I had clothes and personal items at Tyler's apartment from staying there most weekends. I texted him on January 2nd asking when I could come by to collect everything, kept it brief and transactional. He responded suggesting January 4th, a Saturday, said he'd be out of the apartment so I wouldn't have to see him. I appreciated that at least. I brought my friend Claire for support and help carrying things. When we got to his apartment, Tyler had packed everything in boxes by the door, my clothes, Toiletries, books, random items I'd accumulated over 18 months. It was surreal seeing our relationship boxed up like that. Claire hugged me while I stood there processing. As we loaded the last box into Claire's car, Tyler texted, "Did you get everything okay?" I confirmed and thanked him for packing it up. He replied, "I'm sorry things ended like this. I hope you know I cared about you." I didn't respond. What could I say? He'd cared, but not enough to set boundaries with his ex, not enough to be honest about their history, not enough to choose me. Later that evening, Morgan reached out again. She said Tyler had been miserable since the breakup, not eating, moping around. She'd asked him if he'd realized he'd made a mistake choosing Becca over building something real. According to Morgan, Tyler admitted he didn't know what he was doing anymore, that maybe he'd been wrong. Morgan said she loved her brother but was disappointed in him. She'd watched him repeat this pattern before, get close to someone, then sabotage it when Becca felt threatened. She'd hoped I'd be the one who broke the cycle, but Tyler wasn't ready to let go of whatever he had with Becca. I told Morgan I appreciated her honesty, but I wasn't interested in reconciliation even if Tyler wanted it. Too much trust had been destroyed. She understood, said she hoped we could stay friendly. I said I'd like that. The past week I've been settling back into my routine. I started going to a yoga studio near my apartment that I'd been meaning to try. The structure and mindfulness has been helpful. I've also been spending more time with friends, Claire especially, who've reminded me I have solid support outside romantic relationships. Work has been a good distraction. We're launching a new campaign in February and I've been focused on the creative aspects. My boss commented that I seem more engaged than I've been in months, which is probably accurate. I'd been distracted by relationship stress without fully realizing it. On January 6th, Tyler called. I almost didn't answer but curiosity won. He wanted to talk, said he'd been reflecting. He admitted that not telling me about his history with Becca had been wrong, that he should have been upfront from the beginning. He also admitted that his relationship with Becca probably wasn't as healthy or boundaried as he'd always claimed, that maybe he'd been using their friendship to avoid fully investing in relationships. He said he was planning to see a therapist about his patterns. I asked what he wanted from the conversation. He said he didn't know, maybe to apologize properly, maybe to see if there was any possibility of trying again once he'd worked on himself. I told him I appreciated the apology and self-awareness, but I wasn't interested in waiting around while he figured himself out, that I deserved someone who was fully available and didn't need months of therapy to understand that hiding your romantic history with someone while prioritizing them over your current partner is wrong. He was quiet, then said he understood. He wished me well, hoped I'd find someone who treated me right. The call ended and I felt relief more than anything. This chapter was finally closed. I haven't heard from him since. Morgan mentioned Tyler did schedule therapy appointments, which is good for him I suppose. She also said Becca got upset when she found out Tyler was talking about boundaries, apparently threw a fit about him changing and not valuing their friendship. That confirmed everything I needed to know about her intentions. I've started thinking about what I actually want from relationships going forward. Clear communication and honesty are non-negotiable now. I won't rationalize red flags or accept vague explanations. I won't be with someone who keeps exes inappropriately close while hiding their history. This past weekend I went on a first date with someone I met through Claire, a friend of hers who works in architecture. It was casual, coffee and a walk around Green Lake. We talked for 3 hours about everything from travel to weird documentaries to our families. No drama, no complicated histories, just easy conversation. I don't know if it'll turn into anything, but it reminded me that emotionally available people exist. Tyler's inability to prioritize me wasn't about my worth, it was about his unresolved situation with Becca. I'm 28 years old with good friends, a career I enjoy, hobbies I'm rediscovering. The relationship with Tyler taught me about boundaries and expectations. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are through their choices. Tyler showed me he wasn't capable of being the partner I needed. Someone else will be.